Welcome back. We have an update tonight on our series on the Indigenous boarding school program after more than 1,000 unmarked graves were found earlier this year at the sites of 3 of these schools in Canada. Now, the Seneca Nation here has now formally requested that the Thomas Indian School in Irving and 2 other schools that took in Seneca children be added to the federal investigation. And now that decades of abuse have been exposed in Canada, what happens next? Channel 2's Pete Gallivan has some tough questions for our local leaders in part 2 of this series tonight.
The discovery of more than 1,000 unmarked children's graves in Canada have opened many old wounds among Indigenous people across North America. And it's also opened many eyes outside the Native community.
I think a lot of our people, we have heavy hearts today, hearing about all these lost children.
In the United States, there were 367 Indian residential schools. Some argued that they taught valuable skills for Native Americans to be able to live off the reservation, but many saw them differently.
These were militarized, labor-intensive concentration camps.
In Canada, more than 160,000 children were taken from their homes, forced to attend the schools, and separated from their families.
Those bonds were broken intentionally. Their identities were taken from them, and then they grow up and they're forced out into the world.
Disease, abuse, and degradation were commonplace, and now that this tragic part of our collective history has been thrust to the forefront, Native Americans say it is time for the federal, state, and Catholic leaders to address this long-standing practice, termed by many attempted ethnic cleansing.
The Canadian government and the United States government, and the states for that matter, because the Thomas Indian School was a state-run school, have to come clean, and they have to be truthful about this. They have to be able to tell what happened and take responsibility for their part in this part of history.
Well, I think there needs to be justice, and I think it's very important that we follow the lead of the Seneca Nation of Indians who have been so detrimentally impacted over the course of history.
State Senator Tim Kennedy chairs the state's Native American Relations Committee. He sent this letter of support to the Seneca Nation.
It's our obligation to ensure that justice is served. And so my outreach to the Seneca president was offering our assistance in any way possible.
What are you going to do in Albany to see that through?
Actually, right now what we're watching is the investigation happening at the federal government level.
Kennedy is talking about an investigation launched in June by Interior Secretary Deb Haaland, herself a Native American.
I think that's the reason, one of the major reasons why Deb Haaland was selected as Interior Secretary. She's a colleague of mine, a friend, and I think that the Biden administration recognizes that this issue is not new. It's been around for a century and a half. What is new is a recognition that something needs to be done about it.
Do you think reparations in some way, shape, or form are on the table?
I think everything's on the table.
Is that something that could and should happen?
I think so. I think our people need to be have the United States and New York State have to respect our people and what has happened and make it right.
Before there's justice, there's accountability.
And former Seneca Nation President Dennis Bowen remains skeptical that anything of substance will come out of the investigation, either at the federal or the state level.
Senator, we're talking about an attempted ethnic cleansing. Now, the Thomas School itself, that was run by the state. Is there anyone to hold accountable for that?
Well, I think we start with the federal investigation. The fact that the Thomas School is part of an investigation at the federal level with 350 schools is definitely heartening. This is an investigation that is just beginning.
And people talk about apologies now. Well, if America apologized to our people, that'll make it better. There's still injustice.
Well, thank you very much, Pete Gallivan, for that report. And tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock, Pete is going to look into many aspects and the lasting impacts of the residential school system. So please join us for this special. It's titled Tragic Legacy, Unknown Stories of the Indian Residential School Program. Again, that's at 8 p.m. tomorrow night right here on Channel 2.